London, 2010. Ellie Rousel was going through the open mic scene but felt she wasn't a good enough guitarist on her own, so she started looking through music forums and saw a video of Joff Odie playing guitar. They started talking and sparked a friendship. Later than forming the duo Wolf Alice, they got the name Wolf Alice from a short story released in 1979 by British author Angela Carter. At this time, the duo would play acoustic folk pop around the open mic scene. After a couple years, by 2012, the duo would self-release an EP with 3 songs on it: Wednesday, Destroy Me and Every Cloud. These are very melancholic songs focused on the instrumentals more than anything. I recommend listening to Wednesday. This is a very easy to listen to song that has a sound that would return in their later albums. After releasing the EP, they needed a band to play it live. They initially recruited James DC for drums and Sadie Clear for bass. Shortly after, James DC broke his wrist and then Joel Amy joined as a temporary replacement, but then would end up becoming permanent, with Sadie Clear also leaving the band to focus on studies, with Theo Ellis coming in as her replacement. If you're from the UK, you might recognise Theo's last name due to his dad Jack Ellis being an actor starring in the show Bad Girls. In late 2012, they would release the song Leaving You online on SoundCloud for free, which got the attention of BBC Radio and the NME, even giving it airplay. They would end up going on tour with the band Peace in the same year. Fast forward to 2013, the band would release their first physical single, Fluffy. It would be released by Chess Club Records. Later in the year, they would also release Bros under the same label. After the release of Bros, the band would go right back into the studio and record 4 new songs with producer Austin Jocks Chandler, which would later turn into the Blush EP. Their new song She would first get airplay on the Hugh Stevens Raid Show. Following the release of the Blush EP and a support slot with Swim Deep on their headline tour, the band would then do a small headline tour around England, finishing at Dingwalls in London. They would end up appearing at some festivals around the same time in that year. Shortly after the Blush EP tour, they would end up jumping back in the studio and releasing their Creature Songs EP, produced by Catherine Marks. This would focus more on their heavy sound, with songs like Moaning Lisa Smale and Storms having dynamics very similar to songs from bands like the Pixies or Nirvana. Following the release of Creature Songs, the band would end up playing a more extensive tour in the UK and end up playing at Glastonbury 2014, with a whole lot more festivals following these shows. Following the extensive touring and festival run that the band had done for the past few years, they finally decided to jump into the studio and recorded My Love Is Cool at Livingston Studio 1 in London. The album was produced by Mike Crossley, who has also worked with Arctic Monkeys, producing their EP 5 Minutes with Arctic Monkeys and working on Favourite Worst Nightmare of the band. The band went into the studio with enough songs for nearly 2 albums. Only 2 would end up being on the finished product though, which were Fluffy and Bros. Mona Lisa Smile would end up releasing on the US version of the album, while also being on the deluxe edition, with Ellie insisting that the rest of the catalogue has already lived its life out live. On release, the album was praised by critics and fans alike, debuting at number 2 in the UK album charts. Many people would describe this album being a love shell between 90s grunge and shoegaze, almost drawing similarities to Loveless by My Bloody Valentine or Heaven in Las Vegas by the Cocteau Twins, using Ellie's vocals as the main instrument alongside the guitars and drums, with songs like Silk being a prime example of using this to the full extent. The band got their fair share of awards and nominations for this album, being nominated for the 2015 Mercury Prize Album of the Year, a 2016 Grammy nomination for Best Rock Performance, and won the NME's Live Band of the Year 2016 award. The tour for My Love Is Cool would start after the album's release right through to 2016, doing over 300 shows in 2015 and 2016 alone over North America and the UK. After an extensive couple of years of touring, the band had written new songs in London, on the road and during sound checks. In January of 2017, they took all these songs they'd written on a plane and headed to East West Studios in Los Angeles. The band spent 3 months recording the album, which was a significantly longer process than the debut. They worked with producer Justin Meadow Johnson on this album, known for working with Beck and being a touring member of Nine Inch Nails. In May of 2017, fans on the Wolf Alice mailing list would start receiving postcards with cryptic messages fans assumed to be lyrics, like Saint Purple Green and Visions of a Life, with the band also posting these on Twitter, which would later turn out to be names of songs in the album with accompanying lyrics. On June 12, 2017, Wolf Alice would release Yuck Fu as the first single from Visions of a Life. It would be described as punk and high aggressive, which would turn it to be a contrast from the rest of the album. Ellie even saying the song was targeted at someone who tried to put sun-dried tomatoes in her hummus. The band would then release Don't Delete the Kisses, which is the band's biggest song to date and their first song to chart on the UK Top 100. The cover for the album was a photo of Ellie's Aunt Helen playing the classic game of Dance Around the Horse's Skull in Your Sunday Best, saying that the cover of the album was her aunt having visions of a life, which she was playing out, which then also inspired the album's name. The album would then release on the 29th of September 2017, with the band going on the Visions of a Life tour spanning 187 shows, including a sold-out show at the Alexandria Palace and a slot on the Pyramid Stage at Glastonbury. The tour was seen as a good contrast of high-energy performances at Glastonbury all the way down to soft, intimate moments in small rooms. This time around, the band would actually win the 2018 Mercury Prize Award, beating the likes of Arctic Monkeys and Florence and the Machine after missing out on it last time, performing their hit Don't Delete the Kisses on the award stage. The album would also get an NME's 50 Best Albums of the Decade at 22nd and win the NME 2017 Album of the Year. After 4 years of straight touring and recording from 2014 to 18, the band would decide to take a break from playing shows and writing songs on the road, instead locking themselves in a rehearsal room for most of 2019 to write new material. After hashing all the songs out, the band decided to go record these new songs they had in Belgium, primarily recording the album at ICP Recording Studio, with the rest of it being recorded in London at Iguana Studios. These sessions were both produced by Marcus Draves, who has also worked on the albums of Hosier and Florence and the Machine. The band recorded the album in February 2020, which means that COVID was just round the corner. Since the full world was on a lockdown, the band had to isolate themselves in the Belgian studio with just 4 of them and the producer Mark Draves. Joff, the guitarist, said in an interview that the band were spoiled during this period since the studio accommodation had a garden, gym and a kitchen, meaning they could just focus on the music. During this time, guitarist Joff Audio would release a solo album containing only folk instruments dedicated to John Fahey called To Mr. Fahey, with all the proceeds going to a food bank charity in the UK. Blue Weekend would release on the 4th of June 2021. Initially scheduled for release on the 11th of June, the band were so eager for it to come out that they released it a week early. Ellie stated that the band were never really inspired directly by anyone because they take an approach of only listening to what they are making at the time, but she has stated some artists that have always inspired the band. Queens of the Stone Age, who the band did a tour with, Alex G, who the band have covered, and lastly Lana Del Rey, all stated as these overarching influences the band has always subconsciously gotten inspiration from. With the record releasing during the lockdown, the band couldn't tour straight away, only doing some radio shows and live TV gigs, according to Joff, with the band's tour starting nearly 5 months after the release of the album, kicking off the US tour in Seattle on the 25th of October 2021 and spanning through to the end of 2022, including their EU and UK tours. The band also opened for Harry Styles, Bleachers and Halsey during this time. In June 2022, the band were supposed to play a 4:15 slot at Glastonbury on the Pyramid stage, supporting a Billie Eilish headline. However, a day before the show, the band put out an Instagram story asking if anyone had a private jet they could hire due to their flights being cancelled. Many people thought they were joking. They weren't. Eventually, the band managed to get a flight to Seattle with a follow-up to London, landing only 3 hours before their set, and the band managed to get there by the skin of their teeth and delivered a sleep-deprived, emotional set with one of my favourite Last Man on Earth performances. You should watch it. This album, as usual for the band, would have them nominated for a few awards, including the Mercury Prize 2021 Album of the Year, NME Album of the Year, and even winning the 2022 Brit Award for Group of the Year. After the Blue Weekend tour, the band would end up releasing the EP Blue Lullaby on June 24th, 2022. 5 songs from Blue Weekend stripped back to evoke more emotion, said Ellie in an interview. After the EP released, aside from touring, the band went virtually radio silent, with rumblings of this being due to their 3-album deal with Dirty Hit Records coming to an end, and a bidding war happening for the band. They would end up signing with Columbia Records in 2024, departing from their longtime label Dirty Hit, which also had the likes of 1975 and Japanese House on their books at one point. While you can't find any information on when the band started writing songs for this new album, it's safe to assume it was between 2022 and 2024. The band would state all the songs were written and fine-picked in Seven Sisters in London and then taken to producer Greg Kurstin's personal studio in LA, where the album would be recorded. You might know Greg Kurstin's work as he's worked with Lily Allen, Liam Gallagher and Gorillaz. The band would take a different approach recording this album, very stripped back, taking heavy inspiration from the 1970s, which would be clear in the release of the album. On May 1st, 2025, Wolf Alice dropped a snippet of a new tune called Bloom Baby Bloom, with fans getting excited about the new music since the band had been gone so long. The shift in sound was clear as day. It was a more soft, polished, refined sound, not too dissimilar from Fleetwood Mac or a more modern Elliott Smith. Bloom Baby Bloom would debut on BBC Radio 1. Ella describes using her voice in this album as more of a rock instrument similar to an Axl Rose, which is definitely clear on the song as she uses her voice more than she ever has before. Later in the month, the band would play a small intimate show in Ireland, debuting Boom Baby Bloom and the new song Thorns for the first time. The band would start playing shows and drip feeding new songs in the shows, including Glastonbury, where they would play new release song The Sofa and even doing their own version of Dreams by Fleetwood Mac, really signalling to everyone that they're serious about their new sound. The Clearing would release a month later on August 22nd, 2025. It debuted in the UK album charts at number 1, which would be their second after Blue Weekend. The band would then embark on their first ever arena tour in the UK and Europe, which was seen as a big success, cementing them as one of the big boys now. As of today, Wolf Alice are still on tour and have just announced their biggest ever show at Finsbury Park in July 2026. They've got many festival dates booked in between and don't seem to be slowing down at all. While there's been no announcement of new music, there's a big rumour that they're going to announce another big park show, Exhibition Park in Newcastle, which would really cement them as one of the biggest bands in the world. And I'll be here for it.